Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday, November 3rd. Welcome to the first day of overcoming installation and sales challenges for residential replacement heat pump water heaters. I didn't think I was going to mess that title up. It's so many words. We have Tim here from DNR to present for us. And let's get started. There's lots of information. See, where's my slide button? There we go. Just as a reminder, if you haven't taken a webinar from us before, all the attendees are on mute, but there is a way to ask questions, and it depends on whether you're on the app or on the downloaded software, what it looks like. There's a couple examples there. Ask questions at any time. Diane and Tim will get those answered for you. We're recording this, so if you miss anything, have to leave early, you can go to our website. I'll have it posted about a week or so later, and you can go back and look. And there's a little survey after the class that we would love you to take to give us some information if you wouldn't mind. Reminder, this is a 2-day class, so if you're not registered for next Thursday, go to our website, lightingdesignlab.com, and get registered for the second day. And there are a couple of other classes coming up that you might be interested in, also available on the website. Next slide. And now we've got a guest from Energy Solutions, part of our midstream rebates program, who's going to give you some information. Jules, I'm going to go to the next slide and you can go ahead with your presentation.
Thanks, Katie. Can you nod if you can hear me? All right, so hi everyone. My name is Jules Renner and I'm the program manager for the implementer of the City Light Pacific Northwest HVAC and water heating midstream rebate program. And I'll be sharing some information today about the program and about the options that are available both through the program and other options for overcoming financial barriers to the installation of high efficiency hybrid heat pump water heaters. So utility rebates, such as those that are available through City Light, are one tool on a number of ways for customers to overcome the additional costs that are associated with high efficiency equipment. Upfront costs are often the primary obstacle to purchasing high efficiency equipment, and utility rebates from distributors and contractors can help offset that for customers. Some owners are able to qualify for additional financing programs based on income, and there are local banks who offer other financing options. City Light also has on-bill repayment options in partnership with lenders. And there are new tax credits that are associated with the Inflation Reduction Act for 2023, which I will go into a lot more detail on at the end of my presentation. Next slide, please, Katie. So you can see here a summary of the rebates that are available for small commercial and residential hybrid heat pump water heaters for City Light customers. And City Light offers rebates for both retrofit and new construction projects. There's a full list of qualifying products available on the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance website, and more information about rebates is also available on the City Light website. Next slide, please. So another new and really exciting form of financial assistance to customers for 2023 that we can leverage to reduce the impacts of incremental costs is the Inflation Reduction Act. And the part of the IRA most applicable to upgrades for hybrid heat pump water heaters are the residential federal tax credits. These are going to be available effective January 1st, 2023. And the residential tax credits have been existing, but they've gone through some changes as a result of the IRA. So for instance, there was a former residential energy efficiency tax credit, and it's gone through some improvements. There used to be a $500 lifetime limit on it, And now customers are able to get up to $3,200 of tax credit per year, covering 30% of the cost of installing qualified equipment. This includes the direct installation costs as well as the cost of the equipment itself. And it can also help pay for energy audits and electrical panels as well. The annual credit specifically for heat pumps and heat pump water heaters is capped at $2,000, and the annual credit for other upgrades are capped at $1,200 a year. And to qualify for that tax credit, the installed equipment has to meet the CE's highest efficiency tier, which is still to be determined, hence the asterisk on the slide. Another great piece of the residential efficiency tax credit is that the limit resets each year, which it did not used to. So the tax credits can be spread over a project for different years. And an important point to remember here is that this is a tax credit. It's non-refundable. So it only applies to homeowners that have a federal tax liability. But a lot of cases where households who do not have a tax liability qualify for a separate program, the high efficiency home rebate program. And if homeowners meet the qualifications for both, they may be able to meet both a tax credit and a rebate from the high efficiency home rebate program. Thank you, Katie. I will hand it back to you.
Thank you, Jules. That's really exciting that these credits are happening. So thanks for that information. And I am going to hand the presentation now over to Diane and Tim and get started with the class. Oh my gosh, now I have to go to sharing. Sorry, everybody's gonna see behind the scenes here. Okay, Tim, I'm gonna make you presenter now.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. Are we online now? Can everybody see my first slide?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, great. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining me for this discussion on implementing heat pump water heaters in replacement scenarios. This is specifically about existing homes, not new construction, but we have some information that we want to share with you that are specific to understanding the technology and how to push the product out into the marketplace. So my name is Tim Abshire. A little bit about myself. I've been working with utilities my entire career. I began with Northwest Natural Gas in Portland. They're a natural gas distribution company, obviously. Fresh out of college, I entered Northwest Natural and went to work in their energy efficiency department. Followed that by going into sales and promoting natural gas as opposed to the other alternatives. I then became the regional manager of 2 of the district offices Northwest Natural has throughout the service territory. And finally, I ended up as the marketing director for Northwest Natural back when for 12 years, I did that before I retired. But from there, I went up to Tacoma Public Utilities. I'm sure you're familiar with their market. I started a new division there called Customer Solutions. There, I was charged with improving the customer satisfaction among all the 7 different operating units that fall under the purview of Tacoma Public Utilities. Following that, I went to work for my current employer, DNR International, where I managed an account. One of our accounts was Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance. If you're not familiar with them, they are the organization that manages market transformation for utilities in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Montana. And their goal is to drive efficient products, including heat pump water heaters, into the marketplace. So for 4 years, I managed their wholesale distribution and installer market channels related to heat pump water heaters. And I provided typically just product information, technology, and installation training for the trade network. Today, for DNR, I serve as the program manager and the subject matter expert for heat pump water heaters in the residential sector. I'm also a certified continuing education instructor for heat pump water heaters in Oregon and Washington. A little bit about DNR, just real quickly. DNR International is headquartered in Silver Spring, Maryland. We offer a complete line of services built to help our clients transform the way they use energy in both transportation and buildings, with the specific objective of bringing new technologies to the market and creating a long lasting change, including market transformation. So you see here some of our clients. They include Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, as I mentioned, the Environmental Protection Agency, the National Association of Electrical Distributors, HARDI, the Heating and Air Conditioning Refrigeration Distributors of America, the Design Lights Consortium. We're responsible for establishing and validating technical requirements for lighting efficiency, and then the Energy Trust of Oregon. So part of this presentation, I want to learn a little bit about you. So what we've done here is we've set up this, embedded in this presentation, a Slido poll. And so what we'd like you to do is to take your phone and scan that QR code, and it'll bring you up to a poll for the heat pump water heater 2022 selection. So try that, and then we're going to go over and do a quick poll to talk about a little bit about where you are in terms of your knowledge about heat pump water heaters. So the first question in this is, I would consider myself to be a my heat pump water heater knowledge to be novice, intermediate, or expert level. I do this for a lot of utilities, and we get a mix of people, and generally we see it similar to what you're showing today, about 50-50 novice and intermediate. There are generally some experts in the audience, but today looks like it's about what I normally see, 50% of the people learning more about it right now, and then we have some that have had some experience, and then of course some experts. We're going to go on to the next question. I have installed, or I have been engaged or part of an installation for 0 heat pump water heaters, 1 to 5, 6 to 10, or more than 10 heat pump water heaters. So because we have a novice audience, not the number 0 just comes out like a 100%. We have more than 10. Okay, so when we talk about experts, we're talking about people that have actually put them in. That's good to see. We're going to talk more next Thursday on installation challenges, and perhaps if you join us with that, you can offer some good insights as we work our way through the presentation next week. So 80% say you've not installed any, but 20% of you have said you've installed more than 10. So that's a good representation, some rookies and some experience. Next one is, I think heat pump water heaters are overrated and underperform, okay for some households, or awesome, a great investment. Awesome, great investment. 100% of you believe that at this point. The entire audience, it appears, believes that heat pump water heaters, oh, there's okay for some households. Somebody popped in there with a 10%. Okay, so most of you think that heat pump water heaters are a great investment, and today I hope that we can convince you even further that that's the case, and as well as learn some ideas about how you can help others believe the same thing. So this is kind of a slide for the roadmap of what we'll be discussing today. My aim is that following the training that you'll be able to understand how the heat pump water heater works, speak to the market drivers. There's a lot of market drivers out there that are impacting buying decisions. We're going to talk about planned replacements and how do you recognize and create new opportunities. We're going to talk about how to identify a high propensity heat pump water heater prospect. Then we're going to cover the benefits of heat pump water heaters in general, and then how to overcome the objection. And finally, we're going to put it all together by selling the value, how to sell the value of heat pump water heaters to consumers. So let's get started with the first area, the technology overview. So we're going to cover heat pumps. It's essentially old technology in a new application, and that's not what most people think about when they think about heat pump technology. We're going to talk about the refrigerant cycle, how the water heater actually heats water, and then finally the operating modes. So we'll get right into this. So this slide is just kind of a demonstration of the range of applications where you'll see heat pump water heating technology, or heat pump technology, excuse me. Many people, like I said, believe that the technology is new and unreliable. Well, some of the images in the slide will offer the contrary perspective, as you see. Heat pump technology has been around for nearly 100 years, and it began with refrigeration. On the upper left-hand corner, you'll see a 1927 Kelvinator refrigerator. This was just after they were called an icebox. It houses the heat pump right on top of the cooling compartment. And the role of that heat pump was to extract heat out of that cooling compartment and then cast it into the ambient space around it. So that technology that you see there is exactly the same technology that is in place today in a refrigerator. Below that, you'll see this clothes dryer. Now, this is one of the newer heat pump applications that's gaining traction. There's oftentimes incentives available to purchase those. The thing about it still utilizes the same technology. The difference is between this and the refrigerator is that the heat pump is moving heat into the dryer's drum and from the space around it, rather than taking the heat out of the cooling compartment. So it's the same technology, and the refrigerant is flowing different directions. This is all that's happening. How about the picture in the top center, displaying the old Philco cooling machine? That was a window air conditioner that, when that technology rolled out, it seems that the whole family would gather around the air conditioner to experience the cool and refreshing air on a warm summer day. You know, I don't remember that happening in my family, but I still remember those window units as being the principal way of cooling, and were quite the hit. Below that, you'll see the ductless heat pump. And today, in today's market, you'll see they're stylish, they look good, they do both heating and cooling, but the common thread between both those units, the Philco cooling machine and the ductless heat pump, is that they use heat pump technology. Finally, on the right side, you'll see in the upper right, the management of this Chevy dealership believed that air conditioning by Frigidaire was such a draw that he used the accessory to sell his cars. You know, today, as you know, heat pump technology will provide reliable air conditioning for all the modern cars on the world's roadways. Heat pump technology also serves our needs by keeping our water warm, and in this case, we're showing a swimming pool. It's the same technology that you would have in your home, it's just at a different scale. So over the course of time, heat pumps have been a big hit in a variety of residential, commercial, and industrial applications. Okay, what I'm going to show you, we're going to test this. We have had problems with GoToWebinar in terms of its ability to play the sound, but I'm going to play this video, and on the audio, it's going to come from my phone. So hopefully I can sync these up. But what I want you to be specifically aware of in this particular video is what the impact of compressing a gas can have. It's the key to heat pump's efficiency. So watch the portion of the video where the host there compresses air inside of a sealed piston. We're just talking about air. And at the bottom of that piston will be a small piece of cotton. So let me see how this works. Okay.
Cold here attracts the heat. Hot here dumps the heat. That's right. This is the part that doesn't make any sense. Right. How can you have something that is both colder than the warm inside air, but then hotter than the hot outside air? The same thing is both things. Well, if I can compress a refrigerant, it has no choice but to get hot, okay? Now, any gas will get hotter if you compress
This is a perfect example here. This is a little sample unit. Now, this is just filled with air. You can see there's a little piece of cotton right here.
Whoa, air. So not even refrigerant, just air.
It's a gas.
So air works the same way.
What'll happen is we'll compress that air and get it so hot, we'll get to the flash point that it'll light it up. Watch this.
I don't believe this.
See it? You see it? Okay.
You just lit that on fire.
All right. It was for a nanosecond, but it helps you understand that if we compress a gas and it's directly proportional to the change in pressure too.
This is doing.
That's right.
Okay, I hope that worked. But anyway, what was really interesting about that is the host had taken just that tube of air, oxygen, the air that's around us, and compressed it to a point where it ignited briefly, a nanosecond, as he says, that piece of cotton. So for your information, cotton will only ignite once the temperature reaches 410 degrees. So that gives you a sense of how hot that air actually became in that moment that it ignited the cotton. That's the same thing that happens inside of a heat pump. And we're going to walk our way through that right now. Okay, so this is a cutaway of a heat pump. And the animation that I'm going to show you will kind of walk you through each phase of the refrigerant passes through. So the heat pump is basically just the top 18 inches of this particular tank. And the bottom half, or the bottom 2/3, is an electric water heater. So let's watch how this magic works. So a fan on the heat pump draws ambient air around it between 36 degrees and 120 degrees, and it brings it across this evaporator coil that's shown here in red. The evaporator coil is, inside the evaporator coil is a refrigerant that has a very low boiling point of around -50 degrees. So the heat that's contained in the ambient air that crosses over that coil will boil that refrigerant and convert it from a liquid to a gas. So now the refrigerant is a gas, it gets compressed and gets superheated in this compressor. It'll move it from -50 to around 180 degrees, similar to what we saw in that previous video. And when the hot gas is cycled through the condenser, which is located at the bottom of the tank where cold water is introduced, it will absorb, the water will absorb the heat that's inside that condensing coil, and it'll start and begin to heat the water. It does that at about 300 to 350% efficiency. So at no point did the heat pump actually create a new source of heat. Rather, it just moved heat from the ambient space around it, whatever the temperature happened to be, that's between 36 and 120, as I mentioned, and it heated the refrigerant. It was absorbed by the refrigerant, then it was compressed and caused it to heat up, and then it displaces or transfers its heat into the coolest part of the water heater where the cold water is introduced. Pretty simple, but it's amazing that this kind of technology is just now getting traction because it has been so reliable over the years. As we saw in those slides of those old pieces of equipment that they use heat pump technology back then. There's 4 operating modes on most heat pump water heaters. Some have 5, but typically you're going to see 4 operating modes. The first one is the efficient mode. So it is the heat pump only working. So the heat pump by itself is very efficient, 300 to 400% efficiency, depending on what the ambient temperatures are. It'll improve its efficiency. The challenge, though, is that it's slow to recover. So you will only recover about 9 to 12 gallons an hour when you use the heat pump. But if your lifestyle is such that you have plenty of capacity initially and you can use all the hot water you need without having to draw additional energy, it will do the job for you at the most efficient means possible. What you do, though, is you end up sacrificing speed for efficiency. The next mode is the hybrid mode. It's the default setting. So when you buy one, typically it will be set on default mode. And it is just a combination of the heat pump. It uses the heat pump first to heat the water, and will shift to the elements if the heat pump can't meet the demand that's being drawn, the hot water demand that's being drawn on the inside of the house. But it is a good means. It's still more efficient than all electric mode, but you do lose some efficiency from moving on to the elements. The next one is the electric mode. So it is an electric water heater at this point. Its benefit is it's fast, but it's the least efficient. The nice thing about the electric mode is that it does a couple of things. One, if you have a big demand, you're going to have people over your house that are going to be showering, you're going to have a lot of hot water usage. You can manually set it on electric mode for on a temporary basis, and use it as an electric water heater where it'll have its fastest recovery. The other thing about the electric mode is that it will automatically default to the electric mode if there's ever a problem with the heat pump. So it's the least efficient, but it is essentially a standard electric water heater. So when will it switch over to a heat pump, or switch off of a heat pump to electric mode? If you manually set it there, if there's ever a problem with the heat pump, if there's an ambient temperatures are too low, meaning that if there's a risk of freezing condensate, we're going to learn more about this, but condensate is generated on a heat pump water heater. If there's a risk of that freezing below 36 degrees, that's why that limit's there. Or if there's ever a clog in the condensate line where it'll back up and fill up the condensate tray. Lastly, there's the vacation mode. It's basically is what it is. You can set the heat pump water heater while you're away. It'll keep the temperature at about 65 degrees. And when you return, it will just turn it back up to regular settings. There are some models that allow you to set it to go on a day before you return home. They're very programmable and have a lot of functionality. So the technology, in a nutshell, is simple, reliable, tested, and proven. That's what's nice about heat pump water heaters. This isn't something that's right out of the box. I mean, this has literally been around the block a few times, and now it's proven itself to be efficient means for heating water for most families in America. Are there any questions? Good to Diane. I'm not hearing.
We don't have any questions in the chat.
Okay. If you do have questions, if you do have questions, you can go ahead and jot them in that chat during the course of these discussions, and we'll be happy to address them as we can. Okay, so there's a lot of drivers influencing the market. Some of them impact homeowners, others impact utilities and the government. There are climate policies that are kicking in across America that are driving replacement opportunities. And finally, replacement cycle. Water heaters will wear out. The average life is about 12 years, and eventually it's going to break. And so that's a driver for purchasing. So let's just get into these. So this slide shows household energy consumption, and it starts with the United States on the left, goes to the Pacific Northwest in the center, and then California on the right side. I show the Pacific Northwest and California separately just to kind of show what a trend looks like in terms of the heating requirements. So I'm going to show you this. So the green represents the usage by appliances, electronics, and lighting. The pink is space heating, the blue is air conditioning, and the orange is water heating. Since the Northwest has a mild climate, a more mild climate than the rest of the United States as a whole, space heating and air conditioning make up a smaller portion of the energy use. In the Pacific Northwest, heating and cooling combine for about 34% of your energy use. And in California, you'll see that heating and cooling represent 31%. But in the United States as a whole, heating and cooling represent 47% of the energy consumed in a home. The point to this is that homeowners in the Northwest can significantly impact their total energy costs by looking at improving the efficiency of their water heating when they're considering their utility expenses. You can see that the United States, water heating is only 18% of their energy costs because of the demand or the draw for heating and cooling, but in the Pacific Northwest, it's 23%, and in California, it's even greater, 25%. So we're looking at 23% of our energy use in the home dedicated to water heating. So here's a closer look here. So looking at the slide, you'll note that nearly all principal appliances in the home, including heating and air conditioning, have undergone technological advancements over the year. The one exception is water heating, and particularly electric water heating. You might argue that gas tankless water heating is an advancement, which it is, but it still operates below 100% efficiency. So who benefits from advancing the technology for water heating using heat pump water heaters? Let's start with the homeowners. So the cost for water heating, as we've talked about, represents 23% of their utility costs in our region. Heat pump water heaters will operate less than electric water heaters and about the same for gas water heaters. Now, when you add in generous utility incentives, the option of PV solar, photovoltaic solar, demand response, and time of use rates. Now, I'm not sure that Seattle has those in place yet, but they are generally used across the country. Demand response, our utility grid programs, and the time of use rates are peak pricing. So you can program your water heater, a heat pump water heater, to operate outside of those kinds of time frames. So it's nice that it'll afford you the benefit of that flexibility. So the heat pump water heater, if you have all of those in place, will outperform any water heater on the market. The heat pump water heater comes with a 10-year warranty. That's 4 years longer than a traditional tank water heater. If you went into Home Depot, you pick up a gas water heater or an electric water heater, you're going to get a 6-year warranty unless you buy up the extended warranty on it. Heat pumps come with a 10-year warranty. So if you're replacing a gas water heater, finally, the carbon footprint in the home will drop by nearly 50%. How about utilities? So as electrification gains momentum, utilities will want only the most efficient appliances added to their grid. And why is that? So much of the grid that was developed and designed and built over the course of time were before big screen TVs, electric vehicles, 3 computers in every house, cell phones, you name it, all these new things that are drawing energy. The system wasn't designed to operate with that kind of load. So by reducing the load or the demand for electricity through more efficient appliances, it delays the need for infrastructure or generational upgrades. Those are huge expenses for a utility. Utilities pay incentive because it motivates consumers to purchase efficient options. And it's much cheaper for them to pay that than it is to build a new generation facility. So saving kilowatts through energy efficiency allows the utility to repurpose kilowatts, which is far better than having to generate new ones. And finally, governments, electrification decarbonization strategies are the drivers that help our local and state governments and agencies to meet those greenhouse gas emission targets. So there's a lot of things that are in play here when we're talking about motivators or drivers. Seattle City Light has 420, based on the website, 420,000 residential customers. Of that, about 31% are using gas for home heating and water heating. So one of the target markets, when you look at California, I just want to share this with you. When you look at California, you have 90% of their homes are using gas for water heating, and the carbon emissions from a residential home, 50% or 49% is attributed to a gas water heater. So when you talk about opportunity to reduce your carbon footprint, it's huge in California. It's and 1/3 of the case in Seattle, with 31% of the homes having a gas water heater, or we assume that they have a gas water heater based on PSE's customer base. In 2020, the U.S. Energy Information Administration conducted a study that found that between 40 to 60 homes in the state of Washington, 60% of the homes in the state of Washington are all electric. So to validate that, I called PSE and asked them how many gas customers they had in Seattle City Lights territory. And according to PSE, they have just over 150,000 natural gas customers. We assume that if they have gas, these numbers are based on this assumption. If they have gas, they probably have a gas water heater. The likelihood is that they do. So with 420,000 residential meters in Seattle Lights territory, that represents 64% of those homes. If 150,000 of them have gas meter at the house, 64% of the homes are all electric in Seattle City Light Service territory. And it makes sense due to all the low-cost hydropower. I mean, Seattle has almost 100% of their energy is driven from hydro. In the 80s and 90s, home builders, motivated by huge incentives, they built thousands and thousands of homes under the Good Sense and the Super Good Sense brands. So it doesn't surprise me that those numbers are as high as they are. So breaking this down, we want to talk about, you're really talking about all water heaters in Seattle City Light Service territory when we're talking about this in this conversation. We know that a percentage of them, 31% are gas, and the balance are going to be electric. So we're going to take a look at some of the replacement drivers as we drill down into kind of the market where it's actually where the rubber's meeting the road. So replacements, water heater replacements. I told you that they wear out eventually, and over time they're going to have to be replaced. So replacements actually fall into two buckets. There's the failures, water heaters that are either leaking or won't produce hot water. And then there are the planned replacements, homeowners that replace their water heater ahead of a failure. So there's like I said, approximately 420,000 residential accounts in Seattle service territory, both gas and electric water heating. On average, 8% of those existing homes have to replace their water heater annually. So that's about 33,600 water heaters replacements in a year in Seattle City Lights service territory. That's just to give you a scope of what we're talking about. The low operating costs, big driver for a homeowner. Heat pumps are the lowest energy consuming water heater option available. And it lowers the operating costs even further when you talk about adding solar. You program it for time of use and the utility grid management programs that we talked about earlier. Incentives. While incentives have been a motivator, these things aren't cheap. They're expensive. But consumer incentives have helped get some traction for sales in your service territory. Actually, as when I worked with NIA, I had Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Montana as my clients. We saw a lot of traction based on just utilities, and they vary around different markets. So in some cases, you'll see a moderate one, and in other places, they're really high. So it just depends on what utility you work with. Next year, as Jules mentioned, we have the Inflation Reduction Act that will kick in, and it will be a game changer. As she said, now she has a lot of detail in this, and if you ever have any questions about this Inflation Reduction Act and the incentives that are going to fall out of it, I would reach out to her. She's got some good information. But you're going to see some big changes where 30% of your costs can be, if you're income eligible, 30% of your costs can be knocked off the cost of replacing your water heater, and in incentives that are up to $2,000, and so, or excuse me, electrical panel upgrades. All of these things can come together to really make that an attractive offer. Building codes. Okay, so I don't care where you are, but I can tell you in California, Oregon, Colorado, and Washington, there has already been effective bans of natural gas in new buildings, new construction. Beginning in July of 2023, the new energy code adopted in April of this year requires most commercial buildings and large multifamily buildings in Washington to install electric heat pumps. And water heating is part of that equation, where 50% of the water must be warmed by a heat pump system. So that's going to drive heat pump technology. And what else it does is it familiarizes installers and makes them gets some leverage behind them, who have been one of our biggest challenges to get them on board. But they're going to have to get on board or they'll be left behind. Warranties, I mentioned this earlier, but all major manufacturers are putting their money where their mouth is. They're offering these quality built, high efficiency heat pumps with 10-year warranties. Now, can you imagine a tank of water, something that's holding water 24/7 for 10 years, and they're warranting the entire system? That's what they're doing with these. They want to get them out there. There's also, they also recognize that plumbers don't typically have refrigerant licenses. So if there's ever a problem with the sealed refrigerant system in the heat pump, the manufacturers will dispatch a qualified repair technician or will just replace the water heater if it's not repairable. So they really have put their money where their mouth is, as I said. Climate change. Now, this isn't news that there is a huge push to reduce the impact of greenhouse gases. The United States' new initiative to help combat climate change is called the Advanced Water Heater Initiative. So this is something that will be rolling out. It already is rolling out in the eastern part of the United States, and it's moving its way this direction. The Advanced Water Heater Initiative is a federally funded initiative that aims to replace standard electric and gas water heaters to heat pump water heaters. Their goal is to transform the water heating market so that heat pump water heaters are the new Energy Star standard and are utilized on all appropriate replacements. So that's coming. There's a huge effort, like I said, across the country, starting in the Northeast and the central part of the United States. They're coming this way. We've already been working with them, and when you bundle that with the Inflation Reduction Act and the funding that's available there, there's going to be some traction beginning 2023. Okay. Again, we're just going to talk about kind of the market opportunity. There's, like I said, 420,000 customers. The majority of these water heaters are storage units, and they have an expected life of 12 years. So on an annual basis, roughly 8% of them fail or are planned replacements. So this translates into 21,520 electric water heaters and approximately 12,000 gas water heater replacements per year. And we know from the previous slide that gas water heaters contribute roughly 50% of the greenhouse gas emissions in a home. So if gas water heaters are replaced by new gas water heaters, one of the greatest opportunities to reduce the impact of climate change will be lost for the next 12 years. So it's important that we get on top of this. While Washington has not adopted this, California utilities are offering consumers and installers incentives for converting from natural gas to a heat pump water heater. And they have incentives embedded in their programs that include electrical panel upgrades because they have a 90% market share of natural gas water heating. So there's a big push out there for that. And like I said, the Inflation Reduction Act will include panel upgrades or electrical work as part of their incentive package in 2023. So the key takeaway is that these drivers are impacting the market today. So the longer we delay in moving this technology forward, the more opportunities are missed to impact our society. We need to be asking ourselves, how can my business participate in the transition to heat pump water heaters? Are there any questions after this section, Diane?
No, there's no questions.
Let's move on then. So we want to be able to recognize replacement opportunities. So the replacement cycle is a huge driver for consumers needing to replace their water heater, right? We talked about the two buckets that make up 33,520 water heater replacements annually. Those are the emergency replacements and planned replacements. Historically, emergency replacements will end up as a like-for-like replacement, meaning a new standard gas or electric water heater will replace a failed gas or electric water heater because the sense of urgency on the part of the homeowner. You've got water leaking everywhere. You need to get this repaired ASAP. So our goal at NIA and other areas is to proactively move customers from away from emergency replacements toward purchasing a heat pump water heater before theirs fails. So how installers can help make this happen, and how can they do it? We're going to talk about how we can target replacement opportunities. How about training your staff, tracking replacement opportunities on service calls or inbound inquiries, and sizing heat pump water heaters for gains in efficiency and savings. Circling back to this slide, again, I just wanted to break down what this really translates into in terms of opportunity. With 420,000 residential electric customers and 8% failure, that's 33,520 units per year, or 2,793, nearly 2,800 replacements per month, and 93 units per day. So there's a lot of people that are losing their water heater on a daily basis. So before COVID, when I would do these presentations in person, I'd look across this room and I would say, where do your water heater replacements come from? Emergency or planned? Now, these were generally plumbing installers that I'm talking to or distributors, but nearly every plumber would tell me that 90% or more of their water heater sales came from emergency replacements. I always ask the plumbing installers, how many planned replacements do you do, every month? What strategy do you have embedded in your business model that will help you capture those? Well, the interesting thing about the reply from the installers is that the data shows that most replacements are planned. And here's your numbers. So emergency replacements actually only represent 41%, while planned replacements represent 59% of the water heaters that are purchased and installed every year. So emergency replacements give you an idea of the numbers. And so 41% represents 13,750 units that are leaking or not producing hot water. Those are typically same-day replacements, or like for like, is the term that they use. And the reason why is they can get in and out in a hurry. Planned replacements, on the other hand, are 59% of the replacements, represent 19,000, or just say rounded to 20,000 units a year. So for consumers with a working water heater, there's a lot of reasons that they decide to replace it. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do another poll, and homeowners provided us with the top 4 reasons why they were replacing their working water heater. So using your Slido poll, how would you rank them from the most common reason being number 1 to the least common reason being number 4? And plug your numbers in there. They wanted a different type of water heater. It was old and they wanted to replace it before it broke, wanted more efficiency, or just wanted a different type of water heater. What do you think with those reasons, those top reasons were? It's interesting because you would think a plumber would know that these opportunities exist, but it seems based on what they're telling me that their business is based on failures. And so with a larger percentage of the market that's thinking ahead or planning to replace their water heater, you would think that this would have a larger impact on their business. So what we have is you have number 1 and you have 2, you have a tie for number 1, and that was remodeled and included a water heater in their new remodel job. It was old, or replaced it before it broke. They just wanted a different type of water heater. And number 4, they wanted more efficiency. Well, here's what the research showed us. Planned replacements, the number 1 reason was they wanted to replace it before it broke. 43%, or about 8,500 water heaters if you were to put those numbers, Seattle City Lights failure numbers to play here. They wanted a more efficient unit, 25%. So nearly 5,000 people wanted just more efficiency out of their water heater. Then the remodeling came in at number 3. So 9% of the people indicated that they were doing a remodel and they wanted to include the water heater with the remodeling job. And finally, 6% said they just wanted a different type of water heater. There were other reasons, but they were less than that, and so they were less significant. But my point here was, and the lesson is that there's a lot of opportunities in planned replacement market. These water heaters are going to be replaced, but what can we do to help inform and motivate consumers to buy a heat pump water heater rather than replacing theirs with a standard gas or a standard electric water heater? So let's talk about how we can influence them. So any business has a lot of opportunities with customer-facing employees to share information about heat pump water heaters. I use the phone reps or the inbound the call center, whatever you have in your business or generally in a business operating that's selling heat pump water heaters. We are looking to them to ask qualifying questions of customers when they call in. Questions about their hot water usage and the site location and their usage patterns. Then we want to email them information ahead of the estimator showing up to help kind of frame their thinking, get them outside of thinking that they're going to get a like-for-like replacement, that there are other options. So they have a pretty key role. So questions like this: do you have a gas or electric water heater? And where's it located? So this kind of question will help us understand the installation challenges. What might the cost be roughly for the location the water heater is located in, whether it's gas or electric? How many people are in the home? This will help us understand how much water they're using today, the potential savings that you can have by putting in a heat pump water heater. What are the ages of your children? This will help you understand whether their hot water demand will grow over time. So properly sizing a heat pump water heater is really critical to the success and satisfaction of homeowners. And then finally, what's your primary heat? This will help us understand whether they're familiar with heat pump technology. So it's comfort, it's reliability, it's low cost. So a fact about this is homeowners who have a heat pump for their heating and cooling have a higher propensity to buy a heat pump water heater than the market in general. So once we know about their fit for a heat pump water heater, we can email them information about the replacement options before the estimator shows up on site. So what if you're a service technician and you, this can be, I don't want to limit this to just plumbers, but anybody that's going into the home, a remodeler, a builder, going in to evaluate the circumstances in the home should be able to take advantage of these kind of tools. So plumbing service techs are in the home though for any reason. I mean, clogged drains, leaky faucets, you name it. The customer calls your company, you show up and they invite you in, you've made the repair, and now you can add value to that service call by conducting what I call a home plumbing review. So what is a home plumbing review? It essentially is just, it allows you the opportunity to get eyes on the vulnerable areas that can cause problems. And there's a number of them when you talk about plumbing. I don't know about you, but I'm going to tell you a personal experience. If you've ever had a washing machine hose break, just explode and burst, that's a problem. And a plumber can get in there and check it out. It happened to me, and I fortunately was there and was able to shut the water off. But had I not been there, I would have had a disaster. So that's something that is often very neglected and disastrous if it does burst. And other things that they take a look at, shower and drain tubs, those are just common things that don't get addressed on a regular basis. But most importantly, you get your eyes on the condition of the existing water heater. So a service technician can evaluate the water heater to determine its age, how old it is, and whether it has any signs of needing to be replaced. So these are great opportunities to share like one-page sales materials, heat pump water heater sales materials to help educate customers about their options of replacement. Not only will the customer benefit from the home plumbing review, just you providing them valuable information, but the installer will too. So capturing information while you're in the home provides you a portfolio of heat pump water heating replacement candidates. So when you do the home plumbing review, you can capture photos of the nameplate, and on there you can see the age of the water heater. In this particular one, you'll see that it was manufactured in August of 2006. Well, some manufacturers use codes, use the letters of the alphabet to indicate months, like A would be January, B would be February, C, March, and so forth. The only letter they don't use incidentally is I, because it's too close to, it gets confused between a 1 or some other number. So they skip I, but they go up to M for December through December. Anyway, it'll have a code that you can, on the nameplate, tell how old the water heater is. And then you can also take photographs of the current water heater's location. So the installer can see that in this case, there's no specific installation challenges if you want to do a heat pump water heater replacement. Nothing around that would prevent you from putting one in. So with this information, you can often quote a replacement over the phone before an emergency failure. Capturing this information helps keep your company top of mind. So now that you have the customer data, you can establish this communication strategy with the customer that helps keeps the customer reminded that they have an old water heater. So this is a sample spreadsheet. So if you had service technicians capturing this information on every home plumbing review, then you would start to build a pretty good portfolio of names and ages of water heaters and when you can expect that they need to be replaced. So, and you can get their email address, their family size, photos. You can advertise them by name. You can sort them by low, medium, and high replacement priority. All of this information becomes invaluable to an installer. So the purpose of building this replacement priority database is to help establish this communication plan. So 0 to 6 years old, water heater is a low replacement priority. It's still under warranty during that time as a standard water heater because they have 6-year warranties. So it's in pretty good shape. So 7 to 9 years, it's out of warranty now. So you have a moderate replacement priority because it's out of warranty. And then if it's 10 years or older, you have a high replacement priority and it's approaching the end of life. So what you can do is, if we're looking at Jim Smith here, you can see this guy has an urgent priority. His 11-year-old water heater, we know that the average life expectancy is 12 years. It might last 20, but you want to let them know, hey, Mr. Smith, we looked at your water heater. You're well beyond the warranty. You could have a problem with that at any time. You can do quarterly follow-ups. Drop them an email, send them a postcard. We're going to see some of that examples of that in a moment. Eric Johnson, the next customer, is a moderate priority, semi-annual follow-up. And then finally, you have Sally Jones, and her water heater has a low priority and an annual follow-up. So the nice thing about having this database is that every year, everyone moves up one notch, okay? So 8 becomes 9, 9 becomes 10. Pretty soon, you have a continuing circulation of water heaters that are in urgent priority status. And so it helps you as an installer be more proactive in your business efforts, your business growth efforts. And so who should follow up on those? Well, you have your job estimators are out there. These should be working that list and contacting customers. Remember, our objective here is to move them from emergency replacements to planned replacements so they have an opportunity to consider a heat pump water heater. So working that customer list helps them keep it top of mind. Heat pump water heaters are an efficient option, can save you a lot of money. So we also want to be able to talk about the benefits of heat pump water heating. You want to know the incentives. When I was working at NIA, or working for NIA, when we would work with installers, we called them key installers that we were kind of targeting to do this outreach for us. We found that when they presented heat pump water heater to a qualified customer, 30 to 50% of the time they would close the deal on a heat pump. So it isn't that they're not willing to spend, even though that the water heaters are expensive. It just makes financial sense for them in the long run to put in a heat pump water heater. Okay, we're going to move now to sizing, water heater sizing. So if there was one complaint about heat pump water heaters, it most likely would be because the water heater isn't delivering the savings that the family expected. This is usually because the water heater was undersized. Let's think about how they work. So as the hot water is drawn out of the tank, cold water is introduced to replace that hot water, right? As that happens, mixing occurs, which lowers the overall temperature inside the tank. As the temperature decreases, the sensors in the water heater will call for energy, whether it be gas or electricity, to begin reheating the water back to the desired temperature. In the case of an electric water heater, the elements turn on full on, and if it's gas, the burner fires up, okay? When deciding on the correct size of a water heater for the home, there's a couple of standard methods that installers use. The first hour rating is one of them. So first hour rating is essentially the total volume that can be heated in an hour by the water heater. It's listed on the energy guide sticker. Okay, here's an example. So if you look at the top, it's hard to see, but it's an electric water heater. The first hour rating is 62 gallons. So what happens essentially is they drain the water out of the tank until the temperature drops. The mixing occurs, and the temperature drops 15 degrees. They'll shut the valve down, fill up the water heater again and heat it again for an hour and see how much more water they can draw out of that water heater. In this case, it's 62 gallons. Okay. If this is a heat pump water heater, the heat pump will come on first. But if it senses that it isn't able to meet the demand, it will turn on the elements to keep up, just as if it were an electric water heater. So when homeowners are complaining about the savings, it's typically because they don't have enough capacity. They assume that just because you have a heat pump water heater, it'll automatically save you tons of money. That's just not the case when it needs the elements to keep up with the demand. So the question for you is, with a heat pump water heater, do we want to really use full capacity of the energy sources of the water heater to reheat the water in the first hour? Remember earlier I talked about sacrificing speed for efficiency? This is where that kicks in, where it takes place. So when we're talking about sizing here now, if you consistently need a lot of hot water during the morning rush when everyone is trying to get out the door, that period of time is referred to as the peak hour demand. The peak hour demand is a better way to properly size a heat pump water heater for the family, because what it does is it establishes an expected usage pattern and allows the heat pump then to recover after everyone has left to work or school or wherever they're going. So that's where the savings does occur. Peak hour demand. So there are a couple of ways that peak hour demand is determined. I've given you just some examples here. First one is this equation. Let's assume that you have 3 people living in both of these in this house, and we're going to apply the same test to both of these models. Okay, so the shortcut is you take the number of bedrooms in the home plus 1 times 12 gallons, and that gives you your peak hour demand. So our example is if it has 3 people, let's say there's 1 person in each bedroom. So 3 people plus 1 is 4, times 12 is 48. So this is telling us that in this example, the peak hour demand is 48 gallons. Okay. On the right is the AHRI model. That's the Heating and Refrigeration Institute. They use this table that defines the average gallons of hot water per use. So the user calculates the number of times each of these activities are going to be used during the peak hour, and the water heater is sized to meet that volume. You can see, if you use this example down below, that 3 showers at 20 gallons equals 60 gallons. 1 shave at 2 gallons equals 2 gallons. 1 shampoo, 4 gallons. 1 hand washing, 4 gallons. A total of 70 gallons of water needed during the peak hour demand. Now, you look at those 2 numbers and you're seeing that that's a pretty big difference between a 48 gallon on one hand and a 70 gallon demand on the other. 2 things I'm going to point out here. One is there aren't many families that are going to use 20 gallons of hot water on every shower. So that's an aggressive number. And it does also has an asterisk down below that says the above worksheet assumes no water conservation measures. So maybe that 70 is a little exaggerated, but nonetheless, when we talk about what size of water heater, a heat pump water heater we would need for that home, on the example on the left, it's a 48 gallon peak demand. The water heaters come in 3 sizes, 50, 65, and 80. These are heat pumps I'm talking about. So the example would be that in this case, a 48 gallon peak demand. Do you want a 50 gallon tank in there? No. You would not want a 50 gallon tank, because it doesn't, you only get 70% of the capacity out of that tank before the mixing occurs and reduces the temperature. So the next size up is a 65. So in example number 1, you'd have a 65 gallon tank. On example 2, you're using 70 gallons during the peak hour. The next size up is, you're not going to use a 65, obviously. You're going to use an 80. So you're still not going to meet the 70%. You're not going to be able to provide this home with 70 gallons of hot water, even with the standard 80-gallon heat pump water heater. But in either case, what you do have is a capacity established in the first place, initially, that will allow the peak hour demand to be met or very close to have met, based on the sizing that you would apply here. Remember, going back to the first hour demand, the yellow sticker, it was a 62-gallon first hour recovery. And that is while you wait, because that has to reheat the water. Remember, you drain it off, then it has to reheat the water. In these cases, you have the initial capacity already in place when you begin your peak hour demand period. So keep this in mind when you're thinking about sizing. Always, it's much better to upsize when you are in a situation like that, because it's so much cheaper. Upsizing is the best practice for heat pump water heaters. Remember, unlike a gas or electric water heater that reheats the water with all the means possible, our objective when using a heat pump water heater is to use the heat pump as the primary means for heating the water whenever possible, and only using the elements when the demand can't be met. So starting off with the initial capacity is the secret. When the tank's capacity can provide enough hot water during those high periods of time, then the heat pump will operate between 300 and 500 watts per hour. If the elements come on, it's 4,500 watts per hour. So it's much cheaper, less expensive, and more efficient to use the heat pump. The heat pump will operate under these scenarios between, I say between 300 and 500 watts per hour. It depends on the capacity of the compressor, and the manufacturers vary. But it'll operate between 8 to 15 hours for every 1 hour if the elements run. And remember how many gallons an hour that a heat pump will recover? 9 to 12. So if it's operating for 8 hours, you got 72 gallons heated up, ready to go, for cheaper, or for the same price as 1 hour of the electric elements. So here's Nia. I'm showing you this slide particularly because what we want to do is these are best practices. 50-gallon applies for two people in the household. 65-gallon or three adults or 2 children and 2 adults, or an 80-gallon for 4 adults or 2 adults and 3 children. We have found that this is the best example of the best practice for putting sizing heat pump water heaters for families of those sizes. Key takeaways are these. Embed a strategy in your business model that affords the opportunity to influence planned replacement sales. Do those things that will help you get in front of the customer to drive planned replacements. And secondly, when in doubt, upsize. Okay, the end of that section. Diane, anything?
We actually have a question from before. I didn't see it was in the question area. I was looking in the chat.
Oh, okay.
So it says, can you elaborate more on the location of the heat pump water heater and benefits or drawbacks to where the ambient temp comes from, electric resistive heating system versus heat pump versus natural gas? It's a lot to intake.
Yeah, there's a lot there. So there are next Thursday, we're going to talk about installation challenges, and that happens to be one of them. I will say that there's some concerns when you put a water heater in a small space, that because the byproduct of the heat pump, when you extract heat from a space, what you're left with is cold, right? So you don't want to have a water heater in a very confined space that allows the cool air, the exhaust air from the heat pump water heater to be vented into the same location where it'll be drawing its own cold air. You always want to have a supply of ambient temperature air, or in fact, you can have it conditioned space. So rather than diving all into that right now, because we're kind of off at base there, I'd prefer to defer that till next week. But there is a lot of, I will say that the lower the ambient air temperature, the lower the efficiency on the unit, because it has less heat in the cold air, and so it takes more energy to extract heat from cooler temperatures. Is there anything else besides that question?
Yep, we have many utility incentive programs limit size to 50 gallons. Please advise.
Yeah, you know, that's kind of a strange deal. I don't understand that. And I don't, if you're properly sizing a water heater, see, here's the deal. Everyone thinks that a 50-gallon tank heat pump water heater is the same as a 50-gallon electric water heater, or the same as a 50-gallon gas water heater. It's just not. Not if you're using it for its purpose, and that purpose is to use the heat pump as its main source of energy for heating the water. So when you limit to a 50-gallon tank, you're doing a disservice to that customer, because if you have a family of 5, for example, or 4 even, that water heater is going to be using electric elements. That's not how it's intended to be used. So I don't understand why they do that, but it's confusing to me. You don't normally see that. If it's in most markets, you see all water heaters get the same incentive, generally $500. It's going to go up next year, but and I don't think it's going to apply next year going forward. So maybe we wait until January and see what kind of impact that has. I don't think it'll be that problem will go away with the Inflation Reduction Act and the funding that's available for water heating. There isn't anything that I've seen that limits the size of water heater for those incentives. Jules, you might have some other thoughts on that as well, but I don't know. I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, for the midstream program, size is limited to less than 120 gallons.
Well, that solves that right there. So I wouldn't think that we would have to deal with that going forward. But you're right. The question, whoever wrote the question is right. That's the problem that we have. We face in a lot of different markets in the Northwest. Okay, anything else?
Nope.
Okay, let's move on. So your phone representatives have spoken with the customer. They've emailed them information about their water heating options and discussed any special offers. Your service technician's gone out to the home, made a repair, completes the home plumbing review, and captures the photos of the nameplates and the age and the installation location, all the things that we've talked about. They've discussed the age and the replacement urgency with the customer. Now it's time to build a communication strategy that includes the incentive information. Addressing that first cost is a big one. Operating costs and product benefits. So some of this is going to be a little bit of a repeat from what Jules spoke about, but right now through December 31st, if you have an installer put your heat pump water heater in, you're eligible for incentive between $300 and $500. And the reason why there's that range is because some of the distributors have a cost that they've extracted from those funds and covered them. But $300 to $500 off for a heat pump water heater. I don't think that there's a limit on the size of the tank in the Seattle City Light Service territory, but $500 incentive is what it is established at. If you buy at a retail, for example, if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, you can go on Seattle City Light's website, click on this on the left, you'll see it, a $500 digital coupon. You can complete the form that has, and on the right you'll see that takes you there. So right now, for a limited time through the rest of the year, you'll see that there's $650 off what is regularly a $500 incentive. So if you need a water heater, if yours breaks between now and the end of the year, this would be a great deal, $650 off. There's also a tax credit today of $300 through Energy Star, and you can go on Energy Star's website and enter your zip code, and it'll tell you that your rebate is $300 or your tax credit is $300. That's also going to change January 1st. So there's a lot of improvements to this program that are going to kick in January 1. So these are kind of just FYI, this is what's happening today in case of emergency, but at January 1, all things change. And here it is. Real quickly, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, as Jules covered it pretty extensively, but you look down at this table and you'll see that tax credits are currently $300. In 2023, it's up to $2,000 or 30% of the cost of the system. Utility rebates range from $300 to $500. They can be up to $750. The wiring up to $2,500, and electrical panel upgrades up to $4,000. All of these programs are income eligibility based. So you're fully eligible if your income is less than 80% of your state's median household income. So that would cover, most of your lower income folks. But even if you're not in that particular range, you're still eligible for 50% of these rebates if your income is between 80 and 150% of your state's income, median income. So that's still a pretty substantial lift over what they currently are now. And if you're over 150%, then you're ineligible for these incentives. I believe that there may be something for one of the tax credits that are going to be available. The other thing that I don't know about yet, and it's still kind of being hammered out, is if under the utility rebate, if the federal government is giving that set up to $1,700, but you may be able to layer your state's or your utilities incentive on top of that. I don't know if that's the case in Seattle's situation. Perhaps not, but in some places they can be layered, so you can really sweeten that incentive up there. That's a big change, and that's going to take place in January 1. I want to talk about the potential savings because this is often overlooked in terms of, or it's hard to explain from a standpoint for the consumer and installers that are helping to sell them. In addition to these incentives and tax credits that we just talked about, the savings potential from reduced operating costs is pretty substantial. So the Regional Technical Forum is a technical advisory committee to the Northwest Power Planning Council, and their role is to develop standards to verify and evaluate energy efficiency savings. They took a look at the heat pump water heater as it compared to an electric water heater, a standard electrical water heater. And what they found was that the heat pump water heater will likely pay for itself well before the warranty has expired. So it is the only water heater on the market that will actually pay for itself. The annual savings amounts to roughly, based on the Regional Technical Forum's report, $87 per person per year. So when I'm talking to installers about how do they market that, I just tell them to round it up, round it to 90. So if they have 5 people in their family, they can expect to see around $450 a year per year in savings from using a heat pump water heater versus a standard electric water heater. That's a pretty nice savings. You can see, after only a couple of years, you're knocking off about $1,000 in energy savings from your utility bill. If you have a role in promoting heat pumps in any capacity, whether you're a plumber, a builder, an energy service company, a distributor, business development, solar installer, any of these kinds of jobs, you can impact the sale of heat pump water heaters during your course of your daily work. So how do you get consumers informed? So this list that I'm going to share with you is a proven effective means for outreach, and I want to make sure that I'm making you aware of them as well. So installer sales and marketing resources. One of the key ones is joining partnership programs. Whether you're, well, we'll talk more about that in a moment. Joining partnership programs, working proactively through outreach to customers, having homeowner educational resources, website presence, and having a landing page to help you communicate what the benefits of heat pump water heaters, social media presence, online banner ads. All of these things are critical to driving consumers to you as an installer or a business owner to help make them aware of heat pump water heaters. So let's start by taking a look at partnerships. So consumers really generally trust their utility provider and want the added assurance that the utility supports the installer. So associating with your company with other trusted brands leverages your company and your reputation. So Seattle City Light, Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, Energy Star, PHCC, Plumbing, Heating, Cooling Contractors Association, and UA32, the union organization that supports plumbers and steam fitters. All of these things are critical to your credibility as an installer if you're doing an installer, working as an installer. Partnerships can provide oftentimes resources and tools to support your educational sales efforts. Most utilities, as we just covered, will offer incentives that remove some of the purchasing barriers. And many of these partners will list approved contractors on their websites for consumers to access. Here's an example of that partner referral program. So Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance offers all their utility partners, including Seattle City Light, the option of including in their plumbing trade allies on their find an installer listing. If you go to Seattle City Light's home or heat pump water heater webpage and click on qualified installer, the link will take you to this page. The customer will simply enter their zip code and a list of installers will populate the page like I've shown here. Each listing will include the contact information and their location, and will provide the website, their website will provide the installer's website so the homeowner can learn more about their company and the products that they sell. But you can do this on Energy Star. Go back here, NIA, Energy Star, PHCC has a listing as well. So any of these areas, any of these companies or organizations, partnering with them allows you to be, your business name to get out there. Then there's these leveraging these resources from these partners. So Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, Bonneville Power, Energy Star, all are great starting points. All of these organizations offer free to use materials that are tested and proven. They've hired the ad agencies. They effectively reach the audience. So remember those home plumbing reviews we talked about? If you look at the direct mail piece, the little dog in the postcard, this is a piece that is available for those customers who have a high or moderate replacement urgency. You send these to your customer to help keep your company top of mind. And if you flip that over, you would have a blank card where on the left-hand side, you can add a message and say, hi, just a reminder that your water heater is getting old and you want to replace it before too long. This postcard serves as a $100 coupon when you purchase a heat pump water heater, something of that nature. Then you address it and send it off. So all that's free. You just have to download it and take it to a printer. These flyers, formatted flyers, are available to customers for customer outreach. These types of materials are used proactively, either leaving them following a service call or emailing them maybe after you've been there, say, thank you for your business. Here's some information on heat pump water heaters that might be of interest to you. Then also, if you have your own advertising campaign, you can go to these images. These organizations, both Bonneville, Energy Star, and NIA, all have libraries of images that you can use for free to customize your own messaging. Here's some educational resources. I don't want to spend a lot of time on them, but these print materials can be either printed, handed out on site, or they can be converted to PDFs, give your customers information at a glance to help you successfully sell the product. Partners offer a huge variety of resources that can help educate customers. And again, you'll see that these pieces have come from primarily those three entities in the Northwest, but they're also available from the manufacturer, anybody that is associated with promoting this product. The goal of these resources is to help assure that the customer will be informed of their water heating options, and kind of the days of like-for-like replacements are gone. They should be. And we should be, it's sort of our job to inform these customers that whether you're a plumbing or an energy professional, to help them by providing them necessary information to make the best choice for their family. So getting these things into the hands of the consumers is really critical. Here's some more educational flyers, and one example of Ream. I just pulled that up to show you that right off of their website, that's available. So this is a no-brainer, but 80% of homeowners will begin their shopping online. And so if you're not using your homepage or social media sites like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, you're missing an opportunity, because you can add links to your heat pump water heater landing page if you happen to have one. And if you don't, you should. Getting videos in these links, that provide useful information to assist customers in product-specific education. So when we're talking to installers now, I got to say that they're not the most advanced in their marketing as in terms of plumbing installers. So I always got to challenge them. The questions I ask is your website current? Is it interactive? Are you engaging your technician to talk to customers about heat pump water heaters? Are you getting reviews from your technicians for the performance on the job? Do you capture customer reviews and show them on your website? Do you use social media platforms as springboards to your website? Do you have a landing page? All of these things makes them think about it. So the example I have here on the right-hand side of the slide is an example from an installer in the Seattle market or Tacoma market. It's all of these assets are free, and all they did was ask for them. They took the assets and took them to their webmaster, and they plugged in this website that they can now link to. It has a page specifically on their website dedicated to this. On their social media, they can link people right to this. Gives them information about their company, why a heat pump water heater is a good solution for them. Okay, so I'm going to do this exercise again where we're going to play this on my phone. This is just an example of social media that you can download from NIA's website, and there's a number of these that are available. These are you can just plug these in onto your social media site and they'll play for you. So here we go, a second.
Saves you lots of time.
Oops. Oh, sorry.
A water heater does the same. Saves you up to 60% of your water heating costs. Same tap.
Sorry about that. My thumb hit the phone and stopped stop the play. Okay, I got to move on from this. It's just confusing. But what the bottom line is that there's these little 15-second videos that you can plug in for free into your own websites or use them on your social media websites to help drive customers to learn more about heat pump water heaters as well as to your company. There's online advertising. These again are all available at no cost. You can customize to meet whatever your company name is or whatever you want to use to promote whatever kind of style you like to use, all banner ads. If you use Google AdWords, you'll get the benefit of search engine optimization, and customers, like I said, 80% of the people start their search for new products on a water heater product online. This is a good place to position your company for those 93 people that are having to replace their water heater every day in your market. Okay, so a lot there, but key takeaway is this: you want to develop this outreach strategy to leverage your prospect list. Remember, you have this list from these home plumbing reviews. It'll grow and grow and grow and grow. And how do you keep this top of mind with them? If their water heater is going to fail, you want to beat it to the punch. So, any questions on this section, Diane?
Nope.
Apologize for that glitch. Okay, so heat pump water heaters have benefits, and there's also installers that are objectionable to. They don't like the product. They've been in the business for 50 years. They've always installed electric water heater, just like they have the same kind of water heater. It's just not the technology that they're comfortable with. We're going to talk about that for a moment. It is the biggest challenge that we face by far, and that's getting installers trained and comfortable with heat pump water heaters, both the product and the installation. So electric water heaters, like I said, haven't changed in 50 years. So installers are really comfortable selling them and installing them. Their dad did it, 20 years ago. So they've just taken over the business, and now they're continuing with this down the same path. But the investment in this country is making it is really promoting heat pump or efficient technology. Installers will be left behind if they don't adapt and begin learning and sharing the technology. Consumers deserve the right to know about their water heating options, and as we discussed, they're willing to pay for it. So if there's one of the biggest problems, these are all installer objections, okay? High first cost. When compared to a standard electric water heater, it is the lowest operating cost of all electric opportunities. Now, when you talk about gas, you're going to be pushing, it's going to be pretty equal for the time being. But if you add solar or time of use rates or demand response to those grid management programs, and on top of the incentives, it will outperform all other water heating options. So particularly now that we're talking about this Inflation Reduction Act, where there is going to be a wealth of information and cash flowing into this market. Not trained to service heat pump water heaters. Remember, we talked about the manufacturers have a full 10-year warranty. Well, an installer believes that if I can't service it, I won't sell it. The 10-year warranty means nothing to them if there's a failure on that heat pump, because if they don't have the license to work on the refrigerant system, then they have to have somebody else go out there. It is just something that they're not comfortable with. But the manufacturers have put their money where their mouth is. They'll take care of it. So we have to convince the installer that it won't be their problem if that were the case. Lack of knowledge about heat pump technology. So same, what's interesting about this era that we're in with heat pump water heaters is it is very similar to tankless water heaters that we went through 20 years ago or 25 years ago. It took a while for the technology to get traction, but because installers are using heat pumps every day, our consumers are using heat pumps every single day, they know the benefits and the savings and the reliability. And they're also doing their homework. So it's incumbent on the installer to become comfortable with knowing those talking points, get the knowledge on top, get on top of the knowledge, so they're not going to be in a position where they're going to not be able to answer the customer's questions. Installation challenges. Okay, so in this case, it's interesting because we have these changes that are going to happen on the electrical side. So you have 31% of the water heaters in Seattle City Light Service Territory are gas. I would partner with an electrician for those gas replacements, because you might have to put in a panel upgrade. It's very likely that you will have to put in a panel upgrade. So get your feet wet. Get out and find the low-hanging fruit. We're looking for the garage or exterior closet locations where the water heater is pretty standard install. And we just want them to get comfortable with doing a few of those. Well, they're not stocked by my distributor. So we talked about the planned replacements. 59% of these sales are planned replacements. So you don't have to have the water heater in your truck that day. You can go out there, you can quote it, you can plan the replacement, get the customer all set up for the change out on a given day, and stocking is not an issue. There are a few sales opportunities. The opportunities are growing like crazy, and there will be lots of money to support the effort. The Inflation Reduction Act, I talked about the Advanced Water Heater Initiative that's coming across the country. They're going to be all pushing these things, building codes, electrification, carbon reduction policies. All of these things are driving change. So we want to make sure that we have our installer base trained and ready to go as this starts to get traction. Customer service versus sales. Okay, so plumbers always believe that they view themselves as customer service agents, not sales representatives. But consumers want to make good choices for their families, right? So providing homeowners the option, not providing the homeowners the option, is really doing them a disservice. What they want is a trusted advisor to give them what they would do if they were in the same boat. There's an interesting thing I want to point out that we discovered over the 4 years I was working with NIA. Installers that failed to inform consumers about heat pump water heaters and the savings and the benefits that they offered risk getting bad reviews on Yelp. So a consumer having to replace their water heater calls in an installer. The installer literally talks them out of it because the installer isn't familiar with the installation or the challenges or the benefits or all of those things. And the consumer ends up later finding out that they could have put in a heat pump water heater and saved a lot of money. They go back and they give them a bad review. So keep that in mind. So we talked about kind of testing an installer's ability to respond to these questions. You say, hey, the water heater's too expensive. I don't want to put one of those things in. Well, the first cost is higher than a standard electric water heater or a standard gas water heater. But the incentives and the tax credits now, the solar, time of use rates, all of these things give you probably something close to a 2 to 3 year payback on the heat pump water heater. It's the only water heater that will pay for itself over time. So keep that in mind when you talk about the cost. No other water heater will pay for itself. I'm not sure these are reliable. Well, when was the last time you changed the compressor on your refrigerator? These have 10-year warranties compared to a 6-year on a standard water heater. They're all made by manufacturers that already represent the bulk of the water heating market. Rheem, A.O. Smith, Bradford White, they have all put their money where their mouth is. So you can trust them to be reliable. Well, the technology's too new. Well, we saw, the technology's in refrigerators, every single refrigerator that's out there. They're in car air conditioners. They're in ductless heat pumps. Remember the 1927 Kelvinator refrigerator that I showed you? those things, that heat pumps have been around for a long time, and trust me, they've got it wired. I don't want to run out of hot water. Well, properly sized heat pump water heater is the solution to that. The initial capacity is key. So upsizing will produce more hot water and recover the water at a more efficient rate. Way lower cost. When the demand is high and electric resistance kicks in, then it'll only be for a limited amount of time. But if the heat pump if you can count on the heat pump to do most of the water heating, you're going to see a large savings, probably close to $90 per person per year. Well, my old water heater just works just fine. Well, you're throwing good money after bad. Avoid the emergency and replace it before it fails. These, again, are the closing benefits of why homeowners are buying heat pump water heaters. Number one, it's competitive operating costs. You get your money back on a heat pump water heater. It's the only water heater that'll pay for itself. And you can expect that the savings would be roughly $90 per person per year. You'll have immediate savings. This is today $1,000 to $2,000 plus in incentives, plus electrical upgrades. Now, this is looking forward. You can see those numbers will go up. Peace of mind. Well, the water heater's got a 10-year warranty. Some of them have leak detection and are Wi-Fi enabled, so they'll tell you when there's an issue with the water heater. The Energy Star heat pump water heater is the lowest carbon footprint of any other water heater in the market. And finally, you have more control with 4 operating modes. That's a pretty important thing too, because as I said, when you go on vacation, if you have a Wi-Fi, you can adjust it. You can adjust it from Hawaii if you want to. Finally, we have found that customers are satisfied 93% of the time. So what do you do to get ready for heat pump water heaters? Because it's always water heater season, 93 units a day. Trust the installer staff to talk about the benefits and train them to do that so that they have these tools in their hands. Use social media, banner ads, have a landing page on your website. Know that the incentive details for your market. So we're going to learn more about those as January rolls around, but you'll have to get informed on those, and Jules would be a great supporting. It's great to support you on that. Get homeowner education resources into the hands of customers, whether they're emailed or sent in a hard copy. Get product training from your manufacturer. They'll all be happy to come and meet with your distributors and help train you on how this water heater works and what are the benefits of their particular model. Create an alliance with an electrician, energy consultants, advisors, solar installers, HERS raters, and design professionals. All of these people have resources that could help you support your market for heat pump water heaters. Establish and implement a business practice that captures proactive sales opportunities and develop protocols for ongoing messaging. And finally, keep heat pump water heaters top of mind. So that's the end of this presentation, and I appreciate you being here. I do have one more request of you. I would like to know from you which part of the presentation was the most valuable to you, whether it was the heat pump technology, what was driving the market, the planned replacement opportunities, the heat pump water heater marketing and consumer awareness. If you could just use your Slido tool to respond to that, I would be grateful for it. And we'll use that to help just kind of formulate future presentations of this nature and improve our performance overall. What's driving the market, technology, planned replacement opportunities, and heat pump marketing awareness, consumer awareness. Okay, we're starting to see these numbers come up. This is good information. I appreciate your feedback on that because it does help us to kind of refine our presentation going forward. Lastly, I told you that I worked with Nia, and when we did our research following this was the year 2018, during these interviews that we had with installers, they said when they recommend a heat pump water heater, customers will end up going with that choice 30 to 50% of the time. So a big fear from a plumber standpoint is that they're not going to get the business because they're going to have a high priced product. Consumers will buy it if you can demonstrate to them that it's a cost effective and beneficial to their family going forward. So thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat and we'll see if we can get back to them. I don't know, Diane, is there any new ones that perhaps came in?
There's one that says, please provide more information concerning peak demand capability, customer usage and efficiency.
Demand capability. So peak demand is just essentially matching the volume needed based on some calculation or some measure. For example, how many people are going to take a shower in the morning, and multiplying that out and using whatever volume that translates into sizing. So the peak demand is essentially that. How much water you're going to use and how much water you'll need in storage available to you to avoid the heat, to avoid the electric elements from coming on. I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but if you have more details that you'd like out of that, just drop another note in the chat and we'll see if we can get it answered for you. And when you talk about first hour demand, I mean, the difference is that first hour demand just requires that the water heater use full all of its energy sources to heat the water in 1 hour. How much energy will that take? Peak hour has it already heated in a storage capacity, in a larger storage capacity. So meeting peak hour demand is just basically a matching volume needed versus volume on hand. Anything else? Nothing else?
It says, please provide something I can print and share.
For peak hour demand? Is that what that is referencing?
Yep, same person.
Katie, is this presentation available online?
I shared the link in the chat.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can access the chat or the link, and you can take those examples and print that slide if you'd like. They're available on if you Googled peak hour demand, you'll find AHRI has that example that I shared. You can find other examples of how peak hour demand is calculated. Those are two of the most popular. So I would just reference those. I think the Department of Energy also uses the AHRI's example, so it might be available there as well. Just Google peak hour demand. Okay. It's examples. Okay. Thank you again, everyone. I look forward to your presence next week, same time, for overcoming installation challenges. This is going to be more of a installation focused presentation rather than the technology and consumer awareness side. So it'll be if you know of any installers that might benefit from that you'd like to introduce to the product, it'd be a good presentation for them to join us on. Okay.
Thank you, Tim and Diane. That was a really great overview of sales, overcoming sales challenges. Looking forward to the installation challenges next week. So if you are not signed up next week, reminder, go to lightingdesignlab.com and get signed up so you can get into that webinar. Thanks again, you guys, and we will see you next week.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll talk to you later.